Hi everyone, welcome to Beyond the Evidence. This is the channel where justice matters. My name is Mark. I am a true crime fanatic, and I love to dig deeper into the mysteries of unsolved cases. Join me as we search for missing persons, uncover the clues in unsolved murders, follow along with jury trials, and we'll be a voice for the voiceless. I'll share with you the facts, the theories, the clues, the evidence, and the controversies that surround these cases. This is Beyond the Evidence. Good evening, everyone. How are you? We are back for another episode of the Tabitha Shuck Raines story. I have Andrea here with me. Hello, Andrea.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine. Bob's
Good.
over here. Bob's trying to show me his muscles again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we are back, and this time we are going to read from Tony Frawley's deposition. Now, this one is important because besides Gary Stout, who was the lead investigator, and who had passed away before this case went to any jury, Tony Frawley's statement is imperative because he worked so closely with Gary Stout. Wouldn't you agree, Andrea?
Yeah, from the beginning.
Yeah. Hello, Jinx. How are you? So this one is over 60 pages. It's 61, about 60 pages after you take the cover page off and the last page, which just is the signature and stuff. So
yeah, the notary.
Right. So we are going to start reading this because it's going to take about probably a good hour and a half to get through this. And then if anybody has any questions, we'll answer questions and kind of talk about the material that we read through. As you know, if you've seen any of the other episodes in Tabitha's case, while we were reading, we will say time out and tell our thoughts about something that we're seeing, and then jump back into the document. It's just because as we are reading through this out loud, even though we've read through this stuff, ourselves, as we're reading out loud, things start really, we pick up on things.
Things start clicking.
Yeah, and they start clicking, like Andrea said. So in those instances, we will do a timeout and tell what our thoughts are, if there's a discrepancy or whatever, so that it is documented. It just helps our train of thought as we go through this process. So we're going to dive in. This is Tony Frawley's deposition. He was part of the Indiana State Police at the time that this investigation was going on. All right. So you're going to be the attorneys, Mr. Rich and Mr. Alden, and I will be Tony Frawley. And just so you all know, this is the state of Indiana. Plaintiff versus Elizabeth J. Balser, defendant. Oral examination of Tony Frawley. For the plaintiff, appearances is J.D. Rich. For the defendant, Robert F. Alden. Also present, Linda Spivey, who is Elizabeth's mother. All right, we're going to begin.
Okay, Mr. Rich. Bob, if you want to go ahead and introduce who all is in the room, and then I'll swear Tony in. Mr. Alden. All right. In the room today, we have Jay Rich from the prosecutor's office and Robert Alden, who is representing Elizabeth Balser. Linda Spivey is here to assist me in taking the deposition of Tony Frawley of the Indiana State Police. Jay, since you're the public official here authorized to give an oath, would you give Mr. Frawley the oath and swear him in? Tony Frawley, after first being duly sworn to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, was examined and testified as follows. Okay, hang on a second. I want to point something out.
Time out.
We wondered why Linda Spivey was always at these depositions.
Yes. Why is she assisting?
She's assisting Robert Alden, who is her daughter's attorney.
Right. And how is she assisting him?
Right.
This is the first time we've actually known
why she was there.
Right.
Right. Okay. Questions by Mr. Alden. State your name again for the record, please.
Tony Frawley.
And Tony, you're with the state police. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what is your rank?
Investigator.
And how long have you been with the state police?
15 years.
Are you assigned to any specific branch investigations?
I'm just assigned to the Peru post.
So you investigate burglaries, robberies, rapes?
Everything that comes in, we take.
Everything there is. Specifically, how many times have you been involved in a homicide investigation?
I believe this is the second that I've actually been one of the lead investigators.
And what was the first one?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I don't remember the name, and I didn't have a primary role. That's been 3 years ago.
Where was that?
I think it was in Miami County, but I really can't give you the details because it was not a primary. Some of the things I give you might not be accurate.
Now, you worked with police officers here in Tipton, is that correct, in this investigation?
Yes.
And specifically, how did you get assigned to this investigation regarding Tabi's death?
At the time when I was with Chief Gordon Taco, actually when he got the call that the body had been discovered, or a body had been discovered, he and I were together.
This is on October the 5th?
Saturday, yeah.
And what were you doing with him at that time?
At a football game.
Just because you're friends?
Yeah, him and I have been friends for a long time.
Okay, it didn't have anything to do with an official function.
No, we just happened to be at the same, actually, we weren't even together. So that wasn't totally correct. We were just at the same football game.
Tabi had been missing a few days earlier than her body was found. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe it had been reported on the 3rd, or late Wednesday on the 2nd, or early Thursday on the 3rd. And I was not part of the original investigation.
To be fair with you and to make the record as accurate as possible, let's get the date and the days set down. Let's go off the record just for 1 second. Off the record. Mr. Alden. All right, we're back on record again. We just reviewed the dates of October the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and the 5th and coordinated that with the days of the week. Is that correct?
Yes.
What day was it you were with Chief Taco?
Saturday the 5th.
Now, it was October the 3rd on Thursday that the report of a missing person came in. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding. I was not part of that original investigation.
So specifically, that was my next question. You did absolutely nothing as far as an investigation was concerned from October the 3rd to October the 5th. Is that right?
Yes.
You were filled in later as to what Detective Stout had done. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct.
And did Taco assign you to work with Stout then in this investigation?
I don't work for Taco, so he doesn't assign me. He asked that I participate in the investigation.
Okay, asked. And he asked you, wait a minute, and he asked that you work with Taco on this then. Now, how does that coordinate with the state police? How do your superiors work with the local police?
If they ask for our assistance, we give it to them.
Okay, so Taco asked for state police assistance and you were the person that was assigned to help?
Correct.
This wasn't done because you wanted to do it. This was done because
I was asked to do it.
Because you were asked to do it. Okay. Are there other people in the state police department assigned to your post that have had more experience in murder investigations?
Currently assigned? Maybe one. And that would be Bob Land, who is the first sergeant.
And is there any reason he didn't take this assignment?
It's not his job. He's a supervisor.
So there's no one else in the post that had more experience than you did that would be working the cases?
Not that I can think of. Sergeant Tim Miller has obviously been back there longer than I have. Once again, he's a supervisor. He did participate in part of this.
All right, we'll get into what he did and other people in just a second. So now, Saturday the 5th, you get this call. Do you remember what time it was?
Looking back through my notes earlier, I think actually I documented 1:58 p.m. when we were notified approximately.
And starting at that point, what did you do?
Chief Taco and I drove to the park. When we arrived, we were met by Detective Stout and Officer Chet Inaudible.
And what happened when you got there?
It was obvious to us there was a body in the creek. At that time, we began making contacts to get assistance to that area.
And at what point, as far as the crime scene is concerned, had the crime scene been marked off at this point?
Yeah, I believe they had, because I couldn't get all the way up to where they were. They were starting to mark things off. I believe they had tape up. A couple other things. They were not allowing anyone close to the area where the body was other than the initial two officers at that time.
All right. Now, Kevin Steiner processed the crime scene. Is that right?
Yeah, and he was not there at that time when I got there.
And so who secured the crime scene?
That would have been secured by, I'm trying to think who all else was there. Officers of the city police department at that time. It was their investigation, so they would have provided the crime scene security.
Specifically, who would I talk to that would know exactly the chronology, that's not right, the chronological timetable as to when the body was discovered? Who discovered it? Who went to the creek? Who stopped other people from going to the creek? Who preserved the crime scene until it was actually...
Well, once again, that case is the Tipton City Police Department's case. So all that stuff should be documented through their department. I was not part of the actual crime scene.
So now you were down there and you saw the body in the creek. Is that correct?
I was not in the creek, no. But I did see the body in the creek, yes.
And was the body moved in any way whatsoever until photographs were taken, or do you know?
No, not that I saw. The body was never moved until photographs were taken while I was present.
Did you talk to the individual who found the body?
That was Chet Inaudible. Oh, you're talking about
the civilian that found the body?
Detective Stout did, yes. I did not personally.
Do you know what that person said regarding...
I was not part of that interview.
All right. So once the body was found and the crime scene was secured, what's the next thing that you did?
I contacted my direct supervisor, which is Sergeant Miller. I also requested our crime scene tech, John Nystrom, to come to the scene to assist John Steiner with the crime scene, and also requested a state police helicopter, which was sent to us just to give us an aerial view and to look on both sides of the creek bank and along the creek bank.
All right. And then what?
Myself, Detective Stout, Chief Taco, approximately. The helicopter arrived approximately 4:30, quarter till 5. That took a few minutes. By the time it left, I believe it was around 5:30 or quarter to 6. Myself, Detective Stout, and Chief Taco drove to the young Nicholas funeral home where the body had been taken, to which is here in Tipton.
And did you say that young Nichols picked the body up out of the creek and took it to the funeral home?
Well, the coroner did, and the funeral home is his family's business, but he works out of Young and Nichols funeral home.
And so the coroner supervised taking the body?
He was called to the scene.
All right. So you went to the Young and Nichols, and at that point in time, what did you do?
At that point in time, we waited. It was our opinion that the body possibly was Tabitha Raines, just based on description and some jewelry that we had located that was on her body.
Uh-huh.
Shortly after we arrived, John Nystrom and John Steiner arrived to do their thing as far as photographs and secure personal items. Myself, Detective Stout, and Chief Taco then drove to the police department to begin our investigation and to come up with a game plan as to how we would proceed from there.
Okay, hang on a second. It's not John Steiner, it's Kevin Steiner. I don't know why they're saying John.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Typo.
And yeah, and let's start with the game plan. What was your game plan?
One of the first things I did when I arrived at the police department was place a call to Detective Mike Tarr, requesting his assistance. We obviously decided there was going to be several people we wanted to talk to as soon as possible. We were going to need more people than just the 2 or 3 of us. So at that point in time, I believe Chief Taco met with some of the Raines family, and I was not part of that. Detective Stout and I awaited the arrival of Detective Carr and Detective Miller, who was still at the scene. It was at that time we started conducting interviews. We were getting information of people wanting to speak with us. So at that point in time, we started that.
This is another issue that I just want to get into, and this is the basis of what I'm asking here. I know a lot of people did contact the police department. They wanted to give information, and then there were some instances where you got information, and then you may have contacted other people to come in.
Uh-huh.
So let's go through, and if you can remember, if you have documentation as to where the investigation started as far as witnesses are concerned. I know you said Taco met with the Raines family. So did he have Tabi's husband come down to the police station and talk to him, or did... Hello?
Oh, I forgot to unmute after I sneezed.
I was going to say, I was like, where did you go?
It was my understanding that her husband was there when we arrived. I personally didn't see him when we first got there.
When you say there, what do you mean? The police station?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
All right. So you're at the police station. You've now got Mike Tarr there to help you out. You've got Tim Miller there to help you out. Taco is there to help you out. Stout is there. And who was assigned to talk to who? And did you guys all meet and have any kind of a, when you're talking about game plan, how did this all work?
The majority of the first interviews were conducted by Detective Stout and myself.
Who is the first person you remember interviewing?
According to my documentation, Mark Tate.
And do you know why he is the first person?
I can't tell you why.
What was it he told you essentially? Just summarize it.
Well, looking back here, I guess maybe he was the first because he had requested to speak to Detective Stout and myself.
and that's a good thing. Let's talk about who requested to talk and who you contacted, okay? And as we're talking about each interview. All right, so Mark Tate requested to talk to you. What did he tell the two of you?
He said that he had received a phone call from Roberta Souders, which would be Tabitha Raines' mother-in-law, on Thursday, October 3rd, around 11 a.m. Souders told him that she was worried about Tabitha because she had not checked on Drake, which is Tabitha's young son. She stated that Tabitha had dropped Drake off to her residence for the purpose of going to a hospital in Kokomo with Kyle Neff and Amanda Pratt. Said this took place around 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday the 2nd. Tate said he spoke with Roberta Souders concerning Kyle Neff. Souders stated that Neff supposedly said he saw Tabitha at the village pantry on Wednesday the 2nd around 6 p.m. And that's when they first had contact between Neff and Tabitha Raines. That was the meat and potatoes of his conversation with us.
So he's saying that. Did he say he personally talked to Neff, or everything he got was conversation with Mrs. Souders?
No, he got it from Souders.
Everything was from Souders.
According at that time, everything he got would be related to him by Souders.
And Mark Tate's relationship to Roberta Souders is what?
They would be in-laws.
All right. So Tate personally knows nothing. He only knows what Souders told him.
Correct. He was just providing information given to him by Roberta Souders.
During the course of the rest of the investigation, did you ever talk to Tate again about anything he knows from his personal knowledge?
I know Detective Stout did. I don't believe that I ever had a conversation with Mark Tate that I would have deemed at that time to be pertinent information.
Who was the next person you talked to?
Lindsay Groves.
And did she request to talk to you also?
I believe she did.
And what was the substance of her interview about?
It was approximately 7:50 p.m. She had stated on Wednesday the 2nd at about 4 o'clock, she and Tabitha Raines were walking from Babalu's restaurant located here in town, and then observed Elizabeth Balser outside the village pantry. The three of them, Elizabeth Balser, Groves, and Tabitha Raines, walked by the Farmer's Bank, which is located right downtown, and that Tabitha Raines and Elizabeth Balser were talking about getting messed up together. They also were talking about going to Elizabeth Balser's residence to do this. They were making comments as to exactly what they were going to use to get messed up with. Groves said it was about that time that Justin Lacey, who is the boyfriend of Lindsay Groves, pulled up and said shortly after that she left with Lacey. Tabitha had told Groves that Amanda Pratt's mom was having surgery and might not live through the night, and that Tabitha would have to leave her son Drake with her mother-in-law, which is Souders, to be able to go to the hospital to visit her. She last saw Balser and Tabitha in the area of the steel parts by the credit union.
So her testimony was that it was on Wednesday, October the 2nd, that she actually saw Elizabeth with Tabi.
That's correct.
And what other individuals did you say that she was with besides Tabi and Elizabeth?
At that particular time, when they saw Elizabeth Balser at the village pantry, it was her and Tabitha. And then Justin Lacey was also there, and he pulled up in his vehicle.
Did you ever talk to Justin Lacey?
Yes, we did.
And did you take a taped statement from him?
We just talked to Justin Lacey in the last few days.
Who contacted?
Or at least I personally did.
Did you contact him to talk to him?
Yes, I did.
Is there any reason why you all didn't talk to him closer to October the 5th?
I believe that Detective Stout did talk with him. I personally was not part of that conversation. Detective Stout talked to several individuals when I wasn't present. This district covers 6 counties, so I actually participate in investigations in 6 counties, so some of that was done without me being present.
So there were quite a few conversations that Stout may have had that were not taped then. Is that correct?
I can't tell you whether they were taped, but I can tell you I wasn't present for part of those.
Do you have a full copy of the file of the investigation?
I have my copies. I don't have Detective Stout's copies, no. He has his own.
You guys keep your own folders and investigative notes. Okay. The prosecutor has provided me with a list of witnesses, and Justin Lacey's address is unknown. How did you contact him?
We found out that he worked at a business in Elwood.
What's the name of that business? Mr. Rich. Done right.
Yes.
Done right?
Yes, it's on 22nd Street and J Street, the intersection of 22nd and J.
When you talked to him recently, did you take a taped statement from him?
No, we did not.
And what did you ask him, and what did he tell you?
Just provided information. We had received information that Justin Lacey's car had burned approximately 8 or 9 days after the discovery of Tabitha Raines' body. Questioned him about the fire. He stated that it was due to the transmission. He had a new transmission put in, and the transmission was faulty. I don't know whether that's true or not. Talked to him about anything that Lindsay Groves had provided him. He basically told us that she hadn't said anything about having any knowledge of what had taken place. He did confirm the fact that he did show up when Lindsay Groves was with Elizabeth Balser and Tabitha Raines, and that was in the area of Steel Parts Federal Credit Union. Shortly after that, him and Lindsay Groves left. He and Lindsay Groves lived together, at least at the time that we talked to him, were living together. Apparently, they were having some problems, and asked him would he be willing to speak with us if we had to talk to him again. He said he would. In fact, he made arrangements to do that, and that did not work out, and I have not spoken to him since.
So he told you that the fire was 8 days after the body was found, or 8 days after?
Yeah, how we found out was that I had contacted a wrecker lot here in town, and they told me that they had towed his car that had burned, and I believe it was approximately, I don't have that paperwork in front of me, I believe it was approximately 8 days.
Okay, you got the paperwork from the wrecker lot.
I didn't get paperwork, I just contacted them. Their paperwork showed that it was,
They gave you the date
yeah, I think it was 8 days.
as to when they picked it up?
Right. And it actually had burned somewhere out in the county.
And what was the name of the wrecker lot? Mr. Rich. Hankins.
Hankins, Sweetland Avenue.
In Tipton?
Tipton, yeah.
Going back to when he picked up Lindsay Groves. He remembers picking Lindsay up, and what else did he say he remembered?
That Elizabeth Balser and Tabitha Raines were present.
But he couldn't tell you the exact day that this happened. Is that correct?
I believe he said that he believed it was Wednesday, October 2nd, but he couldn't be absolutely sure.
And how does he know the time?
He said it was in the evening time, and I believe it was around 4:30 or 5.
Did you take any notes of your conversation, or is this from your own memory?
I do not have those notes. I did jot down some notes. I do not have them with me. That was from memory, and that was just within the last week or so.
Did he seem to want to cooperate with you?
Yes.
Since it didn't work out for you guys to talk later on.
Yes, he did. I waited on him to leave work, approached him, identified myself to him, asked if he'd be willing to come and speak with us. He said he would. He said he had to leave for Muncie at 5 o'clock. I believe he was going to some type of race. I told him it wouldn't take long. He said he was willing to. He followed me over here, drove his own car. We spoke for a short time, made arrangements to meet him again, and like I said, that did not work out between this office of the prosecutor and Justin Lacey.
Oh, I see. Okay, so let's go back to the police department on the 5th. So you talked with Lindsay, and so essentially Lindsay provided information on the evening before, on Wednesday evening. She had been with Tabi and Liz sometime as late as she thinks 6 o'clock. Is that correct?
Approximately 5 o'clock on the 2nd.
And that she had heard them talking about doing drugs.
Well, her words were getting messed up.
All right. Now, the next person that you talked to your knowledge.
Elizabeth Balser.
And did she come to the police department on her own?
Yes, I believe she did.
And she requested to talk to you?
Whether she requested to talk to us or not, I believe she was there on her own, but we did take a tape statement from her, yes.
I mean, you didn't have to go out and get her or anything like that.
I personally did not go get her.
So in her statement, what did she say?
Said she's known Tabitha Raines for a while, considered her a friend, said she last saw her on Tuesday, October 1st, said that she saw Tabitha and Lindsay Groves at Babaloo's and then walked to Steel Parts Federal Credit Union to apply for a job, but it was closed.
And the credit union was closed. Okay. And did she indicate an application was ever turned in any place?
No, she said Steel Parts Federal Credit Union was closed.
Did anybody else apply for a job that day?
At the same time as her?
Uh-huh. Either Tabi or Lindsay?
She said that Tabitha Raines also wanted to apply, but obviously was not able to do so.
And wasn't there another location that somebody wanted to be like a restaurant or?
St. Amand's.
It's St. Amand's.
St. Amand's.
St. Amand's?
We had received information that that was a possibility. I've never been able to confirm the fact that that was ever done.
Did you all go then to St. Amand's restaurant?
I personally did not go to St. Amand's.
Do you know if Stout did?
You'd have to talk to Detective Stout.
Now, since Lindsay said she saw Elizabeth with Tabi on Wednesday night, and Elizabeth is saying that she saw Tabi on Tuesday night, did you find that there was a difference in days?
Obviously, there was a difference in days. One was saying Tuesday and one was saying Wednesday.
And since there's a difference in days, and since there was actual documentation that may have been available in the form of an application for a job, and I'm sure that they both are talking about how that particular day they were looking for jobs, don't you think it would be beneficial if that application could be found?
That would be beneficial.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Elizabeth said she was with Tabi at Babaloo's, tried to apply for a job, it was closed. Then go ahead. What else did she say?
They were going to apply for a job at Steel Parts Federal Credit Union, not Babaloo's.
Right. Go ahead.
Stated that shortly after they got to Steel Parts Federal Credit Union, it was closed. That Lindsay Grove's boyfriend arrived, and Elizabeth Balser said she got into a car with J.J. Reed, who took her to Tabitha's apartment, and she stayed approximately 45 minutes.
Did you talk to J.J. Reed?
I have not. He has been talked to. I did not personally talk to him.
So do you know if Detective Stout talked to him?
You would have to confer with Detective Stout. I know he was talked to.
So during this entire time that you and Stout have worked together, you have never asked Stout if he talked to J.J. Reed, and J.J. confirmed that it was on Tuesday that he took.
I've had many conversations with Detective Stout. I do know.
Excuse me. Let me just finish the question. So you don't remember ever asking Stout if he talked to J.J. Reed and whether he confirmed that he took Elizabeth Balser to Tabi's house on Tuesday instead of Wednesday?
I do know that J.J. Reed was present. I did not personally talk to J.J. Reed. I had many conversations about J.J. Reed with Detective Stout. I can't tell you exactly what those conversations were.
So specifically, you're saying you don't remember if you ever asked him if he talked to J.J. Reed and whether Reed confirmed or denied that he took Balser to Tabi's house on Tuesday rather than Wednesday.
I can't give you the particulars of our conversation.
So what else did Elizabeth tell you?
Stated that her and Tabitha talked at the apartment, watched TV, and there was no mention of getting messed up. Stated that Tabitha was wearing blue jeans, some type of shirt, and possibly flip-flops. Balser was asked either by myself or Detective Stout about what appeared to be a hickey on her neck. She stated it was a hickey and it had come from Nicole, a dancer at Little Daddy's. She stated she admitted to being at the courthouse square on Friday night the 4th with the same dancer, who is Desiree Green.
Nicole is Desiree Green?
Yeah, same person.
Uh-huh.
The two got a ride with Tommy McDaniel to Balser's residence. They were at the courthouse approximately 40 minutes or so, and that she had known Nicole 2 or 3 days. Said that Tabitha had told her if she was ever involved in a threesome, meaning if Tabitha was ever involved in a threesome, that it would be with Balser. Tabitha also told Balser that she had been involved in a threesome with Kyle Neff and his girlfriend Amanda Pratt. Balser stated she knows Neff, but doesn't hang around with him. Stated that she did smoke marijuana at Tabitha's apartment on Wednesday, October 2nd, 2002.
That she did smoke?
Marijuana.
At Tabi's apartment on Wednesday,
October 2nd.
Is there an issue regarding dates at all to your knowledge in Elizabeth's statement?
As I recall, I believe at one point in time she referred to the day being with Tabitha as Wednesday, and then she changed it to Tuesday.
So there was some issue as to recollection of what the first was as opposed to what day of the week it was, and what the second was and what day of the week it was, because there were two different dates mentioned in the statement.
I believe it was an issue with her recollection, not ours.
So, well, you wouldn't know because you weren't there. So she was having trouble recollecting whether the second was a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. But from your understanding and her statement, she went to Tabi's the same day that she was with Lindsay Groves and Tabi.
At Steel Parts Federal Credit Union, yes.
So whatever day that was, that's the day she went to Tabi's?
That's what she was saying, yes.
And then anything else?
She just stated that she had Tabitha call Matt Clouser to see if Matt knew where Ashley Borland was.
Where who was?
Ashley Borland.
So when did she have Tabi call Matt?
On that particular evening.
And do you know what phone was used?
She said she had her call from her apartment, so that would have been Tabitha's phone.
Did you ever try to get a hold of any telephone records from Tabi's apartment?
I personally have been involved in obtaining some records. I have not been involved in obtaining records from Tabitha Raines' phone.
Is that available as an investigator?
That's not going to show you who a call was made, because that would be a local call.
And Matt Clouser, did you talk to him?
I personally did not talk to Matt Clouser.
Do you know if anybody did?
You would have to speak with Detective Stout.
And did they get a hold of Matt Clouser? Do you know?
She never did say. She left the impression that she did talk with Matt, that Tabitha did talk with Matt Clauser, but we were never given any information as to whether he knew the whereabouts of Ashley Borland or not. They were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. I know that.
And why did they want to get a hold of Ashley Borland?
She never did give any details as to why.
Anything else she told you?
No.
Did she ever give you any information about when she met Desire?
She had just told me that she had known her for 2 or 3 days.
Did she say where she met her?
According to my notes, I don't have that in here. Based on what I know and where she worked, it had to have been Little Daddy's.
And so did you ever go to Little Daddy's?
Numerous occasions.
And did you discover during the course of your investigation that Elizabeth's mother, Linda, had danced at Little Daddy's?
I spoke to a bartender. I say I was there numerous occasions. I was probably there 3 or 4 times through this, as recently as probably 3 weeks ago.
Is her name Donna?
I was told the last time I was there, Donna no longer works there. At that time, I didn't speak with Donna.
It was a different bartender?
Someone I had never seen before.
And that bartender told you what?
I inquired if Elizabeth Balser's mom had put in an application. That gal didn't know. Obviously, she was new. I spoke with Joni Dumoulin by telephone, who is the mother of the bar owner. She told me that the application had been provided to someone from the Kokomo Police Department. I wasn't aware of that. I contacted the Kokomo Police Department and have not heard back as to the whereabouts of that application.
Who did you contact at the Kokomo Police?
I talked with Bruce Rob.
Bruce Root?
Rob, ROOB, who is part of their drug task force.
Now, there are police reports indicating that Kokomo Police was asked to help, and there was a Kelset or something put on one of the dancers in hopes that something would be said. Do you know anything about that?
I was not part of that planning, and in fact, I heard about that after the fact.
What did you hear?
That had taken place.
What specifically?
That's what I heard, that it had taken place.
Who suggested it?
I can't tell you who suggested it, because I didn't know anything about it until after it had taken place. I'm assuming that came from some conversation between possibly Chief Taco and Detective Stout and someone from the task force.
Who asked you to finally try to find this application from the Kokomo Police?
Detective Stout and I had talked about it on occasions. Prosecutor Rich had asked me not to long ago to see if I could locate that application.
And I'm assuming that you're following up thoroughly with that to try to expedite that as quickly as possible?
I've talked to him on 2 or 3 occasions.
I guess I need the names, if you could, and I'd ask that you provide to Prosecutor Jay Rich the names of all the police officers in Kokomo that had anything to do with that investigation, or that they were present when that application was provided to some member of the Kokomo Police Department, so we can pin down exactly who put their hands on it. Could you do that?
I can ask. That's all I can do.
So did you have any other conversation with Elizabeth that night, going back to the statement that Elizabeth Balser gave you?
No, not after that statement was completed.
Who's the next person you talked to?
Paul Vasquez.
And what did Paul Vasquez tell you?
Stated he was a friend of Michael Raines, who is Tabitha's husband. Said he's known Michael Raines for a long time. He didn't give me a specific time frame. He said he's known Tabitha for approximately 2 years. He made a statement. He thinks Kyle Neff killed Tabitha, and he heard that Kyle Neff was possibly the father of her son Drake. And then he said that information was provided to him by Wes Miller. Said that on Friday night, the 4th of October, said Elizabeth Balser came to his residence telling him that Tabitha Raines was missing. He said he felt like Balser wanted to say more, but that she didn't speak about it anymore. He said that he knows that Kyle Neff and Elizabeth Balser are friends. That's all he provided.
So he got his information from what sources? He said that Kyle Neff shot Tabi. Is that what you're saying?
He said his opinion was that Kyle Neff shot Tabi.
What's that based on? Did he tell you what that was based on?
No, that was his opinion. That's when he made the next statement that he had heard that Kyle Neff is the father of her son Drake. That particular information was provided to him by Wes Miller.
Have you talked to him since?
Paul Vasquez?
Uh-huh.
No. In fact, he has moved, it is my understanding.
Do you know his location?
I think it's somewhere in the Monticello area. I don't have an exact location.
So he had essentially no personal knowledge of anything, and nobody made any specific admissions or confessions to him.
No, his only personal knowledge was that Elizabeth Balser and Kyle Neff are friends.
Tape change. Okay, we're going on the other side of the tape here now. We're continuing on with the statement under oath from Detective Frawley. So who would then be the next person?
Michael Raines.
And what did Michael Raines essentially tell you?
He stated him and Tabitha were married on February 3rd of 2002. They had a 6-month-old son, Drake. He said he works at Burnett's Service Center in Kokomo and goes to school at Ivy Tech in Indianapolis in the evenings.
And he also told you that he'd gone to work that day and that he had come back and he'd taken Tabi to GED class. Is that right?
Not on that same day, no.
I mean on Wednesday.
Earlier that day, yes.
On Wednesday.
Correct.
And that he had gone to school that afternoon?
Yes.
And that he had returned home that evening?
Approximately 10:40.
And the last time he saw Tabi was when he took her to GED class?
That's correct.
And that when he got home, the door was locked to his apartment?
I don't have anything in my information that says the door was locked. It says that Tabitha was not home.
And he went over to his mother's to see what she knew, and she told him essentially the same thing that Mark Tate told you, that he had told you regarding the fact that Tabi left and she was supposed to go to the hospital to visit somebody. Is that correct?
Correct, with Kyle Neff and Amanda Pratt.
And so was he questioned then as to what, if anything, he did that night to try to reach her?
He stated he didn't do anything else until the next day.
Now, let's just talk about you and Stout here now and your conversations. What, after you interviewed him, what are your thoughts about that fact?
What are our thoughts about Michael Raines?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. At that particular time, we had any thoughts about Michael Raines.
Neither one of you thought it was odd that he didn't go look for his wife all night?
Well, obviously, we thought it was odd. Whether we talked about it or not, most common, normal people would have done that. I would have thought.
So you don't remember talking to Stout just about that fact?
Well, if we did, I don't recall that, and I don't have anything documented on that.
So when Raines went on and stated that the next day he did make efforts to try to find her, is that right?
Correct.
And what efforts did he say he made?
Stated that approximately 1 p.m. he stopped by the residence of Kyle Neff and Amanda Pratt. Neff told him that he did take Tabitha to the Souders' residence on the 2nd. Also stated that he took Tabitha to the village pantry, also on the 2nd, but he wasn't sure exactly what time. He said he took her to the village pantry to meet what Neff described as a dyke. He was asked about he and Tabitha's relationship with Neff and Pratt. Raines advised all four had partied together, done marijuana, cocaine, consumed pills. Raines stated, or he said that Tabitha had talked previously about wanting to have some type of sexual relationship with Neff and Pratt. Said he had heard Neff was involved in the theft of about $2,000 worth of cocaine, and that whoever that person that had the cocaine stolen wanted their money or that something was going to happen. Said he had observed Tabitha and Amanda Pratt kissing at his residence, or at Neff's residence, excuse me. Said he does recall seeing some ecstasy pills when he was in Neff's residence before. We asked him about was there any type of weapons in Neff's residence. He stated he had never observed any. Said he didn't know anybody or have any idea why anybody would want to hurt Tabitha.
Describe his demeanor when you talked to him.
I would say he was upset, but he wasn't hysterical. Was he a person who I thought he should have been someone who would have been a little more concerned with the fact that his wife was missing?
That was your own personal opinion?
That's my own personal opinion. I think I would have acted a little different.
Was there anything found at Michael Raines' house with any search warrant, anything like that, the last month or 6 weeks?
Yes, there was.
And what was that?
A shirt.
And who executed that search warrant?
It was not a search warrant. It was consent to search form signed by the owner of that property.
Why did you go back there to search?
We had been provided information that a shirt had been found there, and that information was provided by Tabitha Raines' mother. Actually, it wasn't provided to me by Tabitha Raines' mother, but provided to me by Detective Stout, provided to him by Tabitha Raines' mother.
So Ms. Souders called Detective Stout and said,
Ms. Souders is Michael Raines' mother.
I don't mean Souders, I mean Buffy.
Tate had called and said that I think there's a shirt there. I was at the post. I received a call from, I don't remember if it was from Sheriff Henderson or Detective Stout, requesting that I come down there right away, and I was not in a position to do that. They said they would go ahead and take care of it themselves. They called me back later and asked that I go ahead and come down. When I got there, there was a shirt that was there and had been provided to them by Buffy Tate.
Do you have any knowledge? I mean, I know this was all given to Stout, but did Stout tell you how she found the shirt and why she thought it was
Michael Raines' girlfriend, and I can't tell you her name. My understanding is it's his girlfriend. Apparently, she was staying there with him at some point in time after this had taken place. Apparently, had left some items in that apartment. They went back to the apartment to retrieve those items and noticed the carpet pulled back in that area, is my understanding. Looked, and that shirt was down there.
You're saying the shirt was under the carpet?
Well, actually under the floor. It's my understanding. I have not talked to Buffy Tate.
Who went in to find the shirt? I mean, I guess I'm asking this. Did someone pull the shirt out from where they found it? And then when you all went in to search, it was someplace else other than the original place?
No, the shirt was at the jail when I arrived there.
So someone had taken that shirt to the jail?
That was provided, my understanding, is by Buffy Tate.
So Tate dropped the shirt to the jail?
It's my understanding. I've not spoken with Buffy Tate about that.
And what did you end up doing with the shirt?
That shirt has been sent to the state police lab to be analyzed, and that was done by John Steiner.
Now, was Raines questioned about the search at a later?
We cannot locate Michael Raines. It's my understanding he is no longer living here in town.
How long have you been looking for him?
He's made arrangements on a couple occasions, it's my understanding, with Detective Stout to come and speak to Detective Stout, and that has not taken place.
And his mother doesn't know where he is?
His mother is no longer living there.
She doesn't live in town anymore either.
It's my understanding she no longer lives in Tipton.
Well, under present circumstances, as I understand it, Detective Stout has cancer. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so he's basically out of commission at this point in time, and he's recovering from surgery. Is that right?
Yes.
He's no longer actively working on this case.
Not at this point. Right.
So who is currently in charge of the investigation? Is it ongoing or is it closed or?
Well, it's not closed. As you well know, all investigations are always ongoing. At this point in time, any further follow-up is going to be conducted by myself or someone from our department with my request. At the time that the shirt was provided to us, Detective Stout was working.
And how many days ago was that?
He's been off work, I'm thinking, about 10 days. It was just prior to that.
And so it was like right after that he called Stout and said he was going to get with him, Raines?
No.
When was it that Raines?
I can't tell you exactly when it was, okay? I just know that there's been a couple occasions that he has agreed to come in and he did not do that. I don't have those dates. That agreement wasn't made with me, and I wasn't going to be part of those interviews.
So you don't know if it was about the shirt or if it was about something else?
My understanding is it would have been prior to the shirt.
Okay, prior to the shirt. Now, what's your feeling as the investigator at this point about the urgency of trying to contact Raines to discuss the shirt issue with him?
Well, we would love to talk to Michael Raines if we can locate him.
So is it fair to say you are or you are not seeking every possible bit of information as to where he might be located?
We're always open to information.
But you're not like actively going out and talking to people that would know about him?
What I said was we're always looking for information. If anybody can provide us with where Michael Raines is at, we're more than happy to talk to him.
Have you contacted the school that he was going to in Indianapolis?
I have not. My understanding is that he's no longer going to school there, nor is he working at Burnett's in Kokomo.
Who is the next person you spoke with?
Kyla Amen.
And what was the essence of that conversation?
She was speaking about Jonathan Yates had called her, said that Jonathan Yates had called her on Saturday the 5th between 1 and 2 p.m. Said he asked if Kayla had called him earlier, and she just gave some information about him. Said he's 20 years old, lives with his parents at the corner of 1st and Adams Street. Eamon said she asked Yates if he knew about Tabitha Raines, and Yates replied he knows everything about what happened. Eamon said she asked Yates where he had been lately, and Yates stated he'd been hiding out. She said Yates normally calls her 5 or 6 times a day, but had not called her since Tuesday, October the 1st, until Saturday.
Anything else?
Eamon stated that she'd had a conversation with Tommy Nelson. Nelson lives in Atlanta, at least at the time he was living in Atlanta. Said Nelson had told her he was at Yates' residence on Thursday, October 3rd, and that Yates made the statement to Nelson that he had hurt a girl real bad. Yates continued his conversation with Nelson by saying a few friends put the body in a ditch. Eamon said that she called Nelson just a few minutes before arriving at the police department. Nelson told her that Wes Miller was possibly present when Tabitha's body was dumped. Wes Miller denies that.
Did you talk to Wes Miller?
Yeah. Not on that particular evening, but yes, Detective Stout and I did.
Did he provide you with specific information as to where he was?
You'll have to give me just a second to see if I can locate that. So far, I don't find Wes Miller. I was present during that interview, and that interview was arranged by Detective Stout.
Okay.
I just can't find it.
Just as part of your recollection, if you don't find it in your notes, do you remember him being questioned about what he was doing during this time period specifically, or whether it was...
I don't remember specific information. I do know that he denied any knowledge of her death or being present during her death. The specifics I can't recall.
Going back to Michael Raines, did he come to the police station that night, or did you have to go talk to him?
My understanding was he was there when we arrived there.
Okay.
In fact, I know prior to speaking with him, I observed him behind the police station, I believe smoking a cigarette.
Now, did you ask Kayla if Tommy Nelson told her that he'd hurt a girl real bad and that a few of his friends dumped the person in the creek on Thursday the 3rd? Why? And knowing everybody in town, knowing that Tabi was missing, essentially, why she wouldn't have told the police about this conversation?
She had that conversation with him on the 5th. She didn't have it on the 3rd.
So that was
the same day that we spoke with her.
The 5th. Okay. Okay, so who's the next person you talked to?
Tommy Nelson.
What did he tell you?
He also stated Yates had told him that he killed Tabitha. Nelson said he was at Yates' residence on the 3rd, October 3rd, doing cocaine with Yates, Mandy Amen, and Robbie Nelson. Robbie Nelson is his brother. Mandy Amen is the girlfriend of Robbie Nelson. Yates told Nelson that he, Baler, and Wes Miller and someone else hurt a girl. Nelson just made the comment that he believes Yates is capable of hurting someone. He just made a comment. He thinks prior to Tabitha's disappearance, everyone, he means everyone, that all these names were together at Baler's residence. He did not provide why he thinks that or where he got that information.
So Nelson has no personal knowledge of what happened. The only thing he knows is what Yates supposedly told him?
Correct.
Who's the next person?
The next person that I participated in an interview with was Jonathan Yates.
And was Yates there at the police station, or did you have to go?
No, we went and got him.
So as far as now, was this also on the 5th that you talked to him?
Actually, we would have been into the 6th then.
So up through the 5th, those are the only people that you remember speaking with at the police station, those 7 people?
Correct. Those are what I have documented.
And during this time period, there were other officers who were speaking with other people? Are these the only people you personally spoke with?
That's the only people that particular time that I personally spoke with.
And during this same period of time, was Mike Tarr speaking to some people, and Tim Miller speaking to some people, and Taco speaking to some people separately? Or were you guys doing a joint interview?
I can tell you just looking at a supplemental from Detective Tarr that he spoke to Emily Brown at 11:07 p.m. on the 5th. I was not present.
So I would need to talk to them to find out who they spoke to, right?
Correct.
Did they provide the supplemental reports to you summarizing what they did do in this case?
I've got a supplemental right here from Mike Tarr.
Is that standard police policy, since you're the lead investigator, that they provide you with reports for everything they did?
Well, they would supplement what they've done, turn that in, and then I would just obtain a copy of that. They wouldn't actually be accountable to me and responsible to me.
Okay, now Yates. How did you end up talking with him?
We made contact with Tom Lett, who was a prosecutor at the time. provided him information about John Yates. I stand corrected. Let me go back just a second. Prior to talking to Yates, I did visit the residence of Mandy Amen, which is located on 200 West. That was approximately 3 a.m. that morning, or a little before 3 a.m., probably. Knowing that she was a friend of Jonathan Yates and Kayla Amen was a friend of Jonathan Yates, they're sisters. They live in the same residence, or at least at that time. Chief Taco and I drove to their residence to see if Mandy Amen knew where Yates was. She denied any knowledge as to where he was. However, Kayla Amen did come forward about that time and say that she believed he's at a residence, possibly in Indiana Heights in Kokomo.
Okay.
After making a couple phone calls, they knew the address to be on Peace Pipe. They didn't have any idea what the address was. After making a couple phone calls to the sheriff's department and then sending a deputy chief to Peace Pipe, we were able to locate Jonathan Yates' truck at a residence.
Okay.
Myself, Detective Tarr, Detective Miller, along with 2 Howard County deputies, did go to the residence, and Jonathan Yates was present in that residence. Tom Lett had authorized us to pick him up and bring him back for questioning, and that did take place.
So you picked him up as a suspect at that point?
At that point, I guess the thing I looked at him as, not necessarily a suspect, but definitely a person of interest or a person who might have information that we'd be interested in. And after relaying that to Prosecutor Lett, that's when he decided you can go pick him up if he doesn't come willingly with you and to provide a statement to you. And that's what we did.
So when you went to Yates, I guess what I'm asking you is, what did you say to Yates? Under what circumstances did you pick him up? Did you say...
Told him that we had received information about him, whether he was directly involved with the death of Tabitha Raines or had information, that Prosecutor Lett had authorized us to pick him up and transport him to the Tipton Police Department, and it was our desire for him to speak with us, and he did do that, and he was released.
And what did Yates tell you?
At first, had he agreed to sign a consent to search form for his truck, which was located at the residence. A search was conducted of that. We didn't find anything in there at that particular time that we thought was of interest to us. He was transported to Tipton Police Department and was interviewed by myself and Detective Tarr.
What did he tell you?
He stated he had known Tabitha Raines for approximately 5 years, and that approximately 2 years prior to when we were speaking with him, he had dated her for about a week. He said Tabi was a freshman at the time and he was a junior. Said they never had any sexual intercourse, but he did smoke marijuana with her, and he had last saw her approximately 5 months ago. He gave an account as to where he was on each evening, and what I'm reading to you now is a supplement from Detective Tarr from each evening since Tuesday, October 1st. He stated on October 1st he was at Robbie Nelson's residence along with Robbie Nelson's girlfriend, Mandy. He said he didn't know her last name, and Tommy Nelson, Robbie's brother, gave no other details. On Wednesday the 2nd, he said he was at Paul Vasquez's residence. Also present was Jennifer Long, Jean Long, and Wes Miller. On Thursday the 3rd, he says he was at Paul Vasquez's residence, along with Robbie and Tommy Nelson and Tommy's girlfriend, Mandy. He said Robbie had purchased cocaine and all of them consumed the cocaine during that evening. Friday the 4th, he said he was again at Paul Vasquez's residence, along with Jennifer Long and Robbie Nelson. said Liz Balser and a girlfriend whose name Yates didn't know stopped by that evening. On Saturday the 5th, between 3:30 and 4, Yates was at Paul Vasquez's residence with Wes Miller and Paul Vasquez. Yates said he, Miller, and Vasquez began talking about Tabitha and the fact that she was missing. And he said that was the first knowledge that he had had that she was missing. He wasn't aware of that. He maintained he has no knowledge of her death and has no idea who might have been with her last. Yates said that he'd smoked marijuana at Mindy Inaudible earlier in that same evening. That is the residence in Kokomo where he was located. Said his last contact with Kyle Neff and Amanda Pratt was in July of 2002, when Kyle borrowed and burned some of Yates' CDs. He went on to say in April and May of 2002, he was with Tabitha Raines and his sister, Michelle Raines. They applied for jobs at IMI at Westfield. Said he has had no contact with Michael Raines, Kyle Neff, or Amanda Pratt since those dates.
And the last date was when?
He says in April or May of 2002.
Now, specifically relating to October the 2nd, you say he was with Paul Vasquez, Paul Long, Gene Long, and Wes Miller, right?
Correct.
And did you talk to Paul Long?
It's Gene Long.
Oh, Paul Gene Long.
No, it's Paul Vasquez. Gene Long. It's two different people.
Did you talk to Gene Long?
Detective Stout did. I know for a fact. I don't know if I was ever present in any conversation with Gene Long. Any notes coming from Gene Long would have been from Detective Stout.
When you had your conversation with Wes Miller and he denied any knowledge of it, did he confirm that he was with Yates on October the 2nd?
To my knowledge, he did not confirm that. It's my best recollection he did not confirm that he was with Vasquez or with Yates at Vasquez residence.
And going back to Vasquez's statement that you took on the 5th, at that time when you talked to Vasquez on the 5th, you had not talked to Yates. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So Vasquez was never asked whether or not he was with Yates on the 2nd then?
We had no knowledge of that at that time.
So did you recontact Vasquez?
I know Detective Stout talked with Vasquez on more than one occasion. Once again, a lot of those conversations Detective Stout had with people, I was not present.
So to your knowledge, as the current lead investigator on this case, you have no knowledge personally as to whether or not Vasquez, Long, or Miller have confirmed that they were with Yates that night.
I'm not the lead investigator, first of all. I'm assisting Detective Stout. I have no personal knowledge, and I know that Detective Stout has had several conversations with those people.
So then after he took this statement, you let him go at that point.
After conferring once again with Prosecutor Lett, the decision was made to release him.
And what's the next thing that you did?
Spoke with Amanda Pratt.
And did you go to the trailer where she and Neff?
It's not a trailer.
I mean, not a trailer, but the apartment where they lived.
That's correct. It's a house.
She lives with Neff, right?
She did.
At that time?
At that time, yes.
And was Neff there?
Yes, I think he answered the door.
So did you talk to both of them at the same time?
No.
Did you talk to her in the residence or did you bring her to the police station?
No, she willingly came to the police department.
But at that time, you didn't ask Neff to come to the police department?
No.
And what did you ask her and what did she tell you?
She basically stated that her and Tabitha had been as close as sisters for about 2 years at Tipton High School when Amanda was a senior. Tabi was a freshman. Approximately 6 months ago, they had experienced some personal problems as far as not getting along. During that time, Tabitha wanted to have a sexual relationship with her and Kyle Neff. Amanda said she declined to participate, said that she knows Tabitha has tried to break up the relationship she's had with Kyle. She said approximately a month prior to when we were speaking with her, she had talked to Tabitha at Marsh and Tipton, and she said that she maintains that they had worked out their problems at that time.
A month before?
She said approximately a month before. She couldn't give me an exact date.
Did she say that they were ever together after that?
No, she didn't.
After that time?
No, she did not.
And let's go back to Michael Raines. When Raines was questioned about the relationship with Pratt and Neff, did he tell you that all the way up until the time she was missing that there was a problem with Tabi and Amanda?
No, he didn't make any mention of that there was a problem.
I'm just going to give you Raines' statement to refresh your recollection for a second.
Okay.
Raines' statement, October the 5th.
Okay.
Turn to page 16. I think just start with that and read on to the next page or two until you...
I stand correct because the statement doesn't lie.
Okay, so what would your answer be then?
According to Michael Raines, and I did not put that in my summary of his statement. According to Michael Raines, there was a problem between Tabitha and Amanda.
So Michael Raines had told you that the two of them, the deal as far as couples go, he and Tabi really didn't have anything to do with Neff and Amanda for about 2 months?
According to that, yes.
According to that statement that he gave you that night?
Yes.
And he thought the reason was because Amanda and Tabi were having a problem, and he never indicated to you that they ever made up or that there was any kind of resolution of the problem whatsoever?
Not that I recall.
Well, since you took the statement from him on the 5th, and I appreciate that your memory may be better than that now, when you talked to Amanda on the 6th and she said that everything was fine, it looks like when Stout was talking to Raines, I've already talked to Amanda and Neff, because Stout says, as I told you, I've already interviewed and spoke with Neff, and I spoke with Amanda, and they told me the reason the breakup was the fact that your wife had told Amanda that she wanted to split Kyle up and his girlfriend up so that she could go to bed with him. Did that ever happen? He says, I'm not aware of it. Maybe you might have talked to Pratt and Neff before you talked to Raines.
That's not correct for me. I have never spoke with Kyle Neff.
Okay.
And I have never spoke with Amanda Pratt prior to that.
Until the 6th.
Correct. I personally had never.
So Stout obviously had been there and talked to them. You didn't know about that?
You would have to ask Detective Stout.
And that probably was a conversation that took place maybe before you got assigned to the case?
That would be a question for him because I can't answer that.
Mr. Rich, Bob, I need to run to the doctor. Mr. Alden, okay, let's go off the record.
And that is the end of the statement. If there's another one, we don't have it. All right, for Tabby Drake. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining. T. Berlin says, hi, everybody. Okay, so this is from Mark. I personally confronted Tony Frawley about Mark Vasquez knowing where certain people were that night. Ask him, please call in Mark Vasquez for questioning. The next day, he wrecks his truck and killed him. So Mark Vasquez is related to Paul Vasquez, correct?
Yes, they're brothers.
Brothers. So
We've talked about that,
Tate,
Rick.
yeah, our Mark Tate wants Mark Vasquez to go in and talk, but before he can, he wrecks his truck and is unalived.
Right.
Okay. Hello, how are you? Hello, I'm going Yahoo.
Yahoo.
Tony Frawley never got Mark Vasquez into the police department for questioning. True. Did y'all find out what happened to cause Mark Vasquez to wreck? We're going to talk about that in another episode. Andrea said, we know what they said happened, but it's questionable. Exactly. And that's why we're going to talk about that specific thing in another episode. We believe somebody tampered with the front end of his truck 6 months to a year later. A Tabitha's best friend's vehicle messed up in a similar same way, but she survived. Correct. Jinx says, that's not suspicious at all. Oh, it's very suspicious. And I know you're being sarcastic. Tony Frawley also denied us information on the findings of what was on the shirt found in the apartment. And of course, those findings were never brought up in anybody's case. Okay, you can see that one. Let's ask a 2-year detective for help for a major homicide investigation. Right. So many things do not make sense in this case, Jinx says. I agree.
You haven't read everything we've read.
We agree. We've slowly been bringing you along. We got the major key players out of the way. Now we're doing law enforcement depositions. Next, we're going to get into the supplemental written reports. Okay.
Which is there's a couple in there from Kokomo Police Department. There's some in there from Tony Frawley. Mm-hmm. There's some in there from other officers as well.
Right. And then we're going to go into individual statements. This next section is where you're going to start seeing inconsistencies. And the thing that really bothers me, we have absolutely no statements on any of these interviews from Gary Stout.
None. We have his notes.
He is the one that talked to the majority of the people in many conversations.
Yeah, we have his notes. We have his notes. Like we don't
have his statements.
Right. We have.
Or what was the notes are just general.
Yeah, names. Names and phone numbers. Right.
Right. But it doesn't tell us the notes of what was said when he talked to these people. That's what I want to see.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yes, Kevin Steiner, not John Steiner. He don't even know who he's talking about. They forced us to have a closed casket. She was not totally messed up the way they were leading on to us. The only thing wrong with her face, other than a few lacerations, was a black eye and bullet wound. Yes, I agree. But I think because, and Andrea, just correct me if I'm wrong, because she had been in the water so long and the amount of bloating, it didn't look like her at all. And I don't know that at that time the funeral home could have made her look presentable.
Right.
And I'm thinking, Mark, that is why they told you not to have the open casket.
Right. That would be my guess.
Right, and you guys didn't see an autopsy picture until a year later. It would be interesting. I'm wondering why they didn't give some of these other players lie detector tests, like Amanda Pratt, Roberta Souders, Wes Miller, because he's in that statement he was mentioned in there all kinds of times.
Well, the Nelson brothers.
Vasquez,
Yeah.
why weren't any of them given a lie detector?
Well, probably because they said they were all together at this one person's house, and they believed them.
Yeah, but some of them said that they weren't there, or couldn't, or didn't, or couldn't. They never verified that they were all together.
Oh,
By all
Elizabeth Walter
people.
says she didn't shoot her either.
Right.
I don't know. There's just so much that, I mean, yeah, I know that was 21 years ago, 22 years, almost 20 years ago. And things are a lot different now than what they were back then. But still, that's like them saying they didn't know where Michael Raines was.
Right.
Now,
what? You lose track of the husband, huh? How does
and
that happen?
And you're not actively looking for him? Oh, well, we'll take tips as to where he is.
Right.
We're always open for information.
Right.
Well, but then in Buffy's journal, she knew where he was.
Yeah, she absolutely did. So that's one thing that you guys have to realize. We have certain documents. We don't have them all, but we have certain ones. But we also have Buffy's journal. Buffy kept track of a lot of things. A lot of things. And not all of that we're going to share with you. But we can tell you that Buffy knew exactly where Michael was when the cops couldn't so-called find him.
Yeah. And how they moved out in the middle of the night.
Right.
And a lot of other things. Like the whole kitchen cabinet story.
What was the kitchen cabinet story?
They were ripping out the kitchen cabinets. And this was supposedly a home that was rented. And they were ripping out the kitchen cabinets. And somebody asked them why they were ripping out the cabinets if they were moving.
And they rented.
Yeah, and they rented.
It wasn't their place to
rip
out cabinets.
Right.
Now, do we know if that's true or not? That's what was heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do believe that there was people that know more, but they're scared. And that's why, to me, 21 years later, all these people are so scared to talk. They know things, but they're so scared.
But you got to, okay, so, but on the other hand, you have to think of this too. All these people 21 years later are still afraid to talk because why?
Right. That's what I'm saying. I can understand at that time.
But
They were
okay.
young, didn't know any better. But you've grown up.
Right.
You know better.
But they also know that whoever was responsible for this is still not in jail. So you got to think, oh, well, if they talk now, whoever did it may still be able to come after them.
Not if they do it anonymously.
Well, no. This is Tipton we're talking
first. About. I mean, come on, there's ways around it.
In Tipton, like I told you, in Tipton, if you fart sideways, the across town's going to know about it in 5 minutes.
I don't care. It's time. It's 21 years later.
This happened. No, I get that.
If this happened to your family member,
oh yeah,
you would want it solved. But you're okay sitting by on the sidelines, knowing information and not giving it, right? Because it doesn't affect your family,
right? And they're afraid of the what ifs because of how the investigation was handled.
I don't care what they're afraid of anymore. It's time to tell. If it was their family, they would want it solved. They would want their justice.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
But because it's not their family, they're going to keep their mouth shut. And that is so wrong. Enough is enough. Some people need to talk and tell exactly what they know.
Wait a minute. Go back one comment. Kayla Amon was the fire department daughter. Who?
Oh, wait. I missed where it was.
Kayla Amon, daughter of a fire department chief. Who was her dad? Because I don't know no Amons that were ever fire department firefighters.
And which fire department?
Yeah, which fire department?
The thing that really bothers me out of all this, Andrea, is that you have a man that was the lead investigator that talked to everybody. You have absolutely no notes regarding those conversations and no statements from him. What happened to all that information?
Well, Craig Henderson was the sheriff back then.
Okay.
So I would have thought that it would have been his responsibility, because Mark said that the sheriff's department took all of Gary Stout's notes to Jay Rich. So I guess the question would have to be posed to Craig Henderson as to where did they all go?
And are they still in storage?
Right. Which, here's the thing. They moved jails. Sheriff's department and the jail is no longer where it used to be. So right. It's hard to tell them where they're at.
And the worst part is Jay Rich could say to you, well, his statement said this or his statement said that. Well, that's fine and dandy. That's only on your word.
Right. And
that's what it said.
And like we said last episode, Jay Rich could say, oh yeah, this is all we have.
Yeah.
And him have 10 boxes of stuff in another room. Away.
Right.
Because knowing what we know about him now,
you know damn well there was a lot more that he didn't that he
Well,
did
my
not
point-
want anybody to see.
My point is, we know how deceptive he is.
Right. So I know it's been a long time. It's been 21 years. And people are afraid. But I can assure you, I do not give out names. Email me and tell me what you know. It's as simple as that.
Mark, if you're still in here, either private message me who Kayla Amon's dad was and the fire department he was on, or put it in the chat. If you ain't comfortable with saying it in the chat, then private message me.
Email me. If you were friends with Tabitha, I know that rehashing this up is going to be painful again. But I need to know all of the details.
Well, yeah, because you know for a fact I reached out to one of the boys.
Yeah.
And he refused to talk to us.
Yep.
Because he said, with everything being brought up again, it's triggered.
Oh, yeah.
It's triggered memories and stuff and things he doesn't, and he don't even want to talk about it.
But the only way I'm going to be able to put any information together, or we're going to be able to put any information together to even request a new investigation or anything like that, is if I have all the details from anyone who had heard anything about this case or knew anything about this case. So I'm just urging you, after 21 years, to finally talk. You want to send me an email and make up a fictitious name? That's fine. Do it. But give me the information that you know. It's time to end this once and for all and find out the truth. That's what we're asking for. All right, everybody. That is it for tonight. Now, like we said last week, Andrea has a lot of things going on the next 2 weeks. We will try to get out at least one episode in the next 2 weeks with some of the supplemental reports. All I'm committing to right now is one episode because she's going to have a lot on her plate. And after things settle down, then we'll get going again and do more of the supplemental and then get into the individual statements. So that's it for tonight. If you have any questions or any information, email me beyondtheevidence1@gmail.com. And if you don't want me to know who you are, that's fine. Make up a fictitious email address and send the information that way. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I will have more information on an event for Tabitha. And I'm hoping that as many of you that watch this can join us for that event. I've got to talk to Mark about it. And then I'll let you know the details. All right, everyone. we are out of here for this evening. Remember, justice matters. Doesn't mean it doesn't matter, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, even after 21 years, justice matters.
Hang on a minute. There's a question. Sort of new here. Did she just say prosecutor Lett? Yes. Tom Lett was prosecutor in October of 2002. He became the judge in January of 2003.
Yes. And Dustin, I got your email and I emailed you back. So I appreciate it. Unfortunately, the link you sent me, I wasn't able to open, so I'm hoping you can resend it because you said that might help give me some ideas on this for this case and my other cases that I'm working on. So I appreciate that.
I'm looking forward to Wednesday.
What's that?
I said I'm looking forward to Wednesday.
Yes. So, next Wednesday, we will be talking about Jared Jones. And where was Jared Jones from, Andrea?
Tipton,
Indiana. And Jared is Andrea's brother who passed away in 2023. And we will be talking about his case next Wednesday. And she's going to join me along with her mother and her sister. So
on video.
On video for the
Not
first
just
time.
my avatar.
Yeah. So on the video for the first time. So if you're interested in hearing about Jared Jones' case, join us next Wednesday. All right, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.